May 2011 saw the fourth Scottish election to devolve Parliament at Holyrood. Each Scottish election has something significant about it, but 2011 could be the most significant of them all. It provided the first majority government in Edinburgh, even though the electoral system was designed to make this extremely difficult, and the outcome of the election gave the Scottish National Party control of the government and Parliament and an effective green light to hold an independence referendum for Scotland sometime in the next 5 years. This slideshow will tell a story of the election using material collected during the campaign by the Scottish Political Archive at Stirling University. SPA collected leaflets, posters, newspapers and photographs of the campaign across Scotland, and we're grateful to the many people who sent us material. Now, a good place to begin a discussion of the 2011 Scottish election is actually the 2007 election. In 2007, the SNP won its first ever election. The result allowed the SNP to become the government in Edinburgh, albeit a minority government. But its government position was to have great benefits come 2011. And one way of understanding the 2011 election was to realise how many similarities it had with 2007, meaning that Scottish voters focused on policy competence, government performance, party image and leadership, rather than on ideology, what the boffins in the profession refer to as valence voting. All these themes were explored in the book Voting for a Scottish Government, which gave some insights into the type of campaign the SNP fought in 2007, but also in 2011, and which went a long way to explaining the SNP's success at the election itself. You can also think of it as the book that Labour didn't read, as it fought a campaign that focused on opposing the Conservative government at Westminster rather than what the party would do as the government of Scotland. Throughout the election, I spent a fair bit of time in the BBC radio studio in Stirling, taking part in programmes about the election. The great thing about these programmes is that you pick up little nuggets of information that you later realise were symbolic of the election as a whole. Angus MacLeod of The Times is a regular guest on Radio Scotland's Newsweek on Saturday mornings. On one programme early in the campaign, he revealed that First Minister Alex Salmond had been campaigning in North East Fife, a safe Liberal Democrat seat that had been held at Holyrood since 1999 and at Westminster since 1987. What on earth is Salmond doing there was a really good question, and the answer was that the SNP was targeting seats that went way beyond what we had expected in the campaign. The SNP did not focus its efforts on seats it had won in 2007, but on a new set of seats, especially Liberal Democrat seats. This strategy paid off as the SNP success left the Liberal Democrats representing only 2 constituencies in the shape of Orkney and Shetland, as the SNP won every other Lib Dem constituency in Scotland, including the seat of North East Fife. Stirling and the constituencies around it formed a number of battlegrounds between Labour and the SNP, as well as the SNP and the Conservatives. Stirling is a seat that became SNP in 2007, was previously Labour, and was also Conservative from 1979 to 1997. Other seats in the area also saw interesting contests and campaigns in Clackmannanshire and Dunblane, Falkirk West, and Perthshire South and Kinrossshire. Local campaigns are excellent, as you can get some good material if you keep your eyes peeled. Also, some of the material you're trying to collect comes through the letterbox, which definitely makes an archive's life easy. Wandering around Stirling allowed me to get photographs of SNP candidate Bruce Crawford and Labour MP Anne Maguire out campaigning during the election. A trip to Glasgow brought more photographs, this time of George Galloway, Conservative leader Annabel Goldie, as well as campaigners for the Solidarity Party. Driving around also brought a few emergency stops to get photos of posters and fields and windows, and we had photos of this type from all around Scotland. What happens on election day is probably a mystery to most voters. Sure enough, voters troop along to their local polling place to vote, but for the parties, election day is a hive of activity, if they are organised, that is. Some of the things the parties do on election day are relatively unimportant, meaning putting placards and sandwich boards at each polling place and trying to maintain a physical presence outside each polling place too. Remember those smiling faces with the rosettes, for example. However, more fundamentally, if the parties have a campaign infrastructure, they'll have canvassed voters enough to know who the voters are and therefore who they should get out on election day itself. The get out the vote machine is often influential on election day, as parties seek to mobilise as many of their supporters as possible to vote, which can be very important in marginal constituencies and tight races. This part of election day lasts till 10 at night when the polls close, as party activists try to deliver as many voters as possible. Election day was also an opportunity for SPA to take a road trip around the constituencies of Stirling and Clackmannanshire and Dunblane to take in the various polling places in the two seats and also look for signs of electoral life. We started at our own polling places in Bridge of Allan and Causeway Head and Stirling, worked our way up from Dunblane to Doon, Callander, Strathar, Cullen, and then back down through Thornhill to photograph most of the polling stations in Stirling. Election night itself is a curious thing. For the returning officers and counting staff, there's the race to get the ballot boxes sealed up and safely delivered to the count. Then there's the count itself. Some took place overnight, while others began the next day. Compared to 2007, there were no problems with counting, and the election results filtered out throughout the night and the day that followed, with a series of results announcements across Scotland, often covered live on TV and radio. For some of us, though, it was off to the BBC in Glasgow for Radio Scotland's election special, an all-night affair that lasted until about 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. The BBC on election night is always entertaining. The studios seem overrun with politicians, journalists and BBC staff from different programmes, ferrying guests between programmes, swapping news and gossip and trying to figure out what's happening in election counts across Scotland. The first result to come in was Rutherglen, which Labour held reasonably comfortably in the circumstances. However, the result saw the SNP vote increase by 16.3% and the Liberal Democrat vote decrease by 14.8%. The second result was a surprise of sorts, as the SNP took East Kilbride from Labour. The SNP had been competitive in East Kilbride for some time, so this was an excellent result for them, but not a complete shock. The shocks, though, came later, as the SNP began to win safe seats from Labour in Glasgow in the west of Scotland, and nearly swept the board in Edinburgh by winning seats from all parties. In the studio, I was in the lucky position of having friends texting in results and predictions throughout the night, including predictions of a possible SNP majority. The first of these predictions came in around 3 o'clock in the morning, due to activists seeing so many Labour and Lib Dem seats being knocked over by the SNP, but also the size of the regional list vote. However, getting anyone to believe that it would be an SNP majority was a real challenge on election night. The results of the election itself were a shock, and a shock in two distinct ways. First, the SNP won seats from Labour and the Liberal Democrats that had been regarded as safe as houses. The SNP won Airdrie and Shotts, Glasgow Anniesland and Kirkcaldy from Labour, for example, and also Caithness, Sutherland and Ross, Edinburgh Western and Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch from the Liberal Democrats. Second, the size of the SNP vote delivered a majority, as the party won 69 of the 129 seats, including 53 of the 73 constituency seats, leaving Labour with only 15, the Tories with 3 and the Liberal Democrats just with 2. It wasn't just winning individual seats that did the job either. The regional list vote delivered success too, with the size of the SNP vote helping it to win all the constituencies in the northeast of Scotland and still win a regional list seat, something that was thought to be impossible. The size of the regional list vote allowed the SNP to win 16 list seats in total, and the complete result of this was a very, very yellow electoral map in Scotland.